Final check-in with the Webster. I'm certain of it, mostly because with Dune 2 coming into the theaters, there's just not going to be any room left for a movie that is simply raking in at this point in time, what, $400 a screen? $400 a screen after its second weekend. That's abysmal, man. The fact that it already hit 6 digits on the Wednesday and Thursday leading up to its second weekend in release. We haven't seen numbers like that. There is no comparison when it comes to this, okay? If the Sony thought they were going to be launching their good old Spooderverse right there, and the fact of the matter is, this thing, it depends on how many theaters it loses. I'll probably do a update video pointing out how well or unimpressively, but we can kind of see by everything that's coming out from Dune 2, and it's definitely going to be a scenario, whether or not it's successful, and it's going to be the tallest midget so far in 2024, because what else has drawn numbers, okay? Like, you had some carryovers at the end of last year, but all of the maybe sleeper hits that were out there didn't end up amounting to a hill of beans. And everybody kind of seen on the calendar, it's like, Madam Web, oh, it's going to be terrible. We just didn't anticipate maybe, potentially, not even hitting $100 million worldwide. Like, this thing's going to lose a lot of money, given the fact that its production budget is somewhere in the realm of $110 million. And we know that the promotional budget, the marketing budget, was also north of that $100 million figure, even with half of the box office dollars going back to Sony, and then 40, and depending on where the rest of the split is, 25 to 40% to the haul internationally. Things losing. It's still managing to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. Who could have possibly seen that coming? But guys, there's some people that like it. We haven't actually looked at this aspect of it so far, but some critics actually liked Madam Web. Okay, what are they saying about this? Okay, because, well, it's just overwhelmingly negative, 13% on Rotten Tomatoes, 21 positive reviews, and Metacritic and the like are, well, just not all that happy, right? Critic from Slate. See, we're not going to go to somebody's blog. We're just scraping the bottom of the journalistic barrel. Saw Madam Web precisely the same way as you did with Showgirls. It's interesting, but at least Showgirls had the added benefit of not hiding away the goods of the lead character, like what S.J. Clarkson did with Sydney Sweeney this time around, but an incoherent mishmash. This is a positive review, by the way, populated by slumming movie stars. Slumming and movie stars. Interesting, because they got paid handsomely, so I don't really think that it's slumming and movie stars. Dakota Johnson, really? That's the biggest name attached to this? Alright, it's a travesty, a disaster, a blight in the history of superheroes and cinema itself. I enjoyed the hell out of it. That's also the persistent through line whenever I'm hearing somebody discuss Madam Web, even if it is just with this scathing critique. It's abysmal. The story writing, the movie craft itself is all terrible. The performances were mailed in so badly you can almost see the stamp on the actress's forehead. But hell of a good time. Don't pay any money to go see it, but do indulge if you're so inclined to like those so bad it's good movies. Yes, I enjoyed the hell out of it. Madam Web is thoroughly unself-aware, the rare modern movie that achieves the status of pure camp without meeting it. It might not be the kind of fun its makers intended it to be, but it doesn't make it any less of a good time. The LA Times also praised it for the purest form of camp. Oh, is that what we're doing? Is that the spinner, or is that the rephrasing that we're seeing right here? Just like, okay, when Echo, if you guys remember, of course you don't, but it came out earlier this year on the Disney side of things. While we have this rephrasing with Madam Web, oh, it's pure camp, it's wonderful, it's fantastic that way. When you view it that way, it's actually not an entire dumpster fire. But the way that Echo was pushed was, oh, it's gritty, it's grounded, it's a street-level crime drama. Once you see the buzzwords that get attached to these different reviews and that are handed down from on high to the access media, it's really tough to not see those trends emerge in other places. But purest form camp, Cassie Johnson is so compellingly weird that you can't take your eyes off of her. She delivers every clunker of a line with her full chest voice and a twinkle in her eye. The other three gals, Sydney Sweeney, Celeste O'Connor, and Isabella Merced, well, they were clearly cast for their potential future standalone film, which obviously, as we know from this previous article, just really ain't gonna happen. Okay, any other non-Spider-Man, Spooderman films, Like that new franchise, the Sony Spider-Verse, whatever we're gonna call it, don't have to worry about getting the phrasing right because it's dead on arrival. I covered this before in one of the previous videos. I can't remember which because it's been so fun to talk about the utter collapse of this failure of a movie. Outside of the live-action adaptations, in the waiting, I'd just like to know what kind of a knock-on effect this is going to have for the Craven film, if it's going to perform better. Are we wading into a Marvels to Aquaman? I understand different studios, but in the same genre. And for the public, the same perception, right? It's a superhero film. Aquaman, I'm looking forward to the team-up that he has with Captain America someday. And it's like, oh yeah, sure. But you have all of these aspiring spider stories that are out there. Can we go ahead and classify them like this? Craven, kind of an obscure Spider-Man villain. It also has one of the best storylines in all of comics that is central around Spider-Man, and Sony and their infinite stupidity didn't think to acquire Spider-Man. If you're going to be doing a Craven movie, how can you tell the Last Hunt story arc without Spider-Man there? It doesn't make any sense, but they were trying to build this because I guess they thought eventually they'd find a way to work out a deal with Disney, and it sure seems like they have found a way to work out a deal with Disney, as Sony has acquired the physical publishing rights through the entire company over at the House of Mouse. And then all of those rumors about Spider-Man 4 coming along for 2025, that'll be another story for another time. But there's also, like I said, more knock-on effects as Amazon was going to be getting a not Spider-Man show, Silk, the Spider Society, another female-led Spider-Man-like story. Stop me if you've heard this before. Axes the entire writer's room. What? Spider-Man spin-off being retooled for male-skewing audiences. Oh, right, because I remember in this article right here that while we're trying to court the female audience, guess what, guys? Males make up 65 to 70% of the superhero audience in North America. So if you're going to try to tell a girl boss story, guess what? It hasn't worked for a long time. You only capitalized on the hype of superheroes by wedging in your overtly feminist film in Captain Marvel, and I think tomorrow gonna have a story about the ultimate fate of that story. That's the only real success story that Marvel can tout in regards to having a strong, empowered female lead. Not to say that they don't have good female characters. It's just whenever they put them front and center, you end up with some of the worst outings in all of superheroes. But I digress. Let's talk about a show that actually looks like it's trying to course correct. According to the latest whispers vibrating through the World Wide Web, get it? Not Madam Webs, because we'll never hear from that one again. Amazon's upcoming Silk Spider Society has cleaned out its writer's room in the service of a massive from-the-ground-up retooling of the series' entire creative direction. All right. Now, produced by Sony Picture Television in partnership with Amazon MGM, the series is set to follow the story of one Cindy Moon, a young woman with her own set of spider powers who, per the series' official logline, escapes imprisonment and searches for her missing family on the way to becoming the superhero Silk. Yes, Silk Spider. Get it? Notably, while its heroine's entire existence being closely tied to that of Spider-Man, she receives her powers through the very same radioactive arachnid, which resulted in his origin, and is freed from the underground prison, actually a bunker meant to protect her from Spider-Person eating villain Morlun. Okay, thanks to his help. Whether or not the project will either establish a connection to the feature, an appearance from the web slinger is currently unknown. That's kind of what Sony was hinging all of this stuff on, because there you can see in this panel you have Ezekiel, who was, spoiler, the main villain of Madam Web. And what, you also have some origin story behind, Silk as well. So yeah, of course, it's a central character. Anyways, this is due to the fact that Sony, whose television division is in charge of the series, shares the film and television rights to Spider-Man with Marvel Studios. Exactly, and we know how that came about. As such, any use of the web slinger is dependent on some level of agreement between the two, as seen with all of his appearance in the MCU proper, and whether or not one has been reached in regards to Silk, a Spider Society, has yet to be confirmed or denied, and we won't really know, because if everything's going to be rewritten and retooled in order to, I don't know, appeal to your prospective audience? Interesting. Though it first entered full production in November of 2022, the onset of the 2023 Writers Guild, strike, actor strike, and all that stuff put the series on indefinite hold until the dispute eventually came to a close in September of 2023. Following the strike's conclusion, Deadline reports that, per the sources, Silk, Spider Society's writers' room, had been looking to get back into the saddle sometime in mid to late January of 2023. Wouldn't that be 2024? Yeah, no, that should be 2024. That's a typo. However, if a recent report from entertainment news outlet The Ankler is to be believed, these plans for the writers to return instead turned into plans for a complete project restart. Okay, relaying information provided by her supposed source, staff writer Elaine Lowe alleged that not only had the series let go of its entire writer's room, minus its showrunner, Angela Kang, okay, and one of its co-executive producers, somebody, unnamed, obviously, despite them are having already written several episodes, we've seen that before, but it was also being refocused with a more male-skewing audience in mind, a la Reacher, Jack Ryan, and The Terminalist. Oh, like Amazon's successful shows. It's a good way to model it, okay? All three of which have been some of Amazon's, most popular streaming officers. When reached by Lowe, Amazon had offered no comment on her scoop. But I guess we'll have to see when this thing ultimately comes out. I'd imagine if they're back into the scripting phase once again. It's going to be a hot second before we end up getting I highly doubt we're going to see that costume, but that would definitely, drive subscriptions. It's actually really cool, okay? Yeah, if they're actually going to be serious about, I don't know, I don't need to be pandered to, right? Because this is you can also interpret this, that they're going to be going ahead and they're going to try to pander to the male skewing audience. The reason that superhero content in general is in the state that it's in right now, it's because it was specifically tried to pander to a certain demographic. If you want some writing advice for that brand new writer's room that you just brought in, instead of trying to focus on a certain demographic, how about you just focus on telling a coherent story? So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Coswell. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.